We have to watch each other's backs on these things, yeah.
Yeah, let's just make a mark where that's at. All right, Stephen Beard.
Hey, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, dude. How are you?
I couldn't be better. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome back down to the Roadhouse.
Yeah, I don't get here enough, but I do enjoy being here. It's fun.
You've played on the stage a couple times now.
Couple of
you
times.
You kind of kicked us off in one way, right? When we were getting ready to get started, you did...
I think we played the warm-up before the first episode. We played here, yeah.
Yeah, and then you played episode 15, I think.
I think that's right. That sounds right. It was Locals Night, I think you called it. Yeah.
With Ambridge Road.
Ambridge Road. They're a good, fun band, yeah.
Yeah, it was. That was a great night. It was a fun night.
That was good.
So we should mention Poppy Jasper Band.
Thank you.
The name of your band.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
yes,
where can you be found?
We can be found on poppyjasperband.com, which is a really creative name for a band called Poppy Jasper Band. You can find us out on Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of stuff too, but mostly the website, I'd say, and Facebook.
Very good.
We're old folks. I'm only on IG because I'm told I have to be. I didn't even have an Instagram account before.
You're a Facebook guy, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I know.
Since my
sorry.
It was a long time. I wasn't even a Facebook guy.
I know, right?
I don't know how to operate Twitter, and I do not have a Snapchat or. Yeah,
I know. I'm in with you, dude. I got a little gray in the beard myself.
That's right.
I gotta admit to that. Yeah.
Mine's mostly salt these days. There's not much pepper left.
Well, let's take that and run with kind of a part of the purpose of this podcast. So Chris and Ann Shirley are not here tonight. This is a kickoff of a little bit of a interwoven series, I guess, along with the podcast that I'm calling From There to Here. And it is about bringing people in who have lived in Silicon Valley for 15 plus years is really kind of the scope of what I want to look at. And because I'm a transplant, right? I've been here for 7 or 8 years now. Right. I hate when it's like below 50 degrees now, so I feel like I'm pretty much
it's starting to make
like
you
I should
local,
be a Californian now. That I'm
sure.
like, oh God, it's like 52. Shit, it's cold, where it used to just be a joke. But yeah, I'm so fascinated with this place because it is so beautiful, and there's so much opportunity, and there's such an energy, and there is so much access to everything here. But I'll admit, there's also a lot of there's an underlying current of not happiness that goes on here, and that's part of what I'm trying to hear as well. Or to discover, maybe. Mm-hmm. And more than anything, and why you're an excellent fit for both of these, we're here in Morgan Hill, California. You're from Morgan Hill originally.
Not originally, but
you've been here.
I've been in the Bay Area most of my life, but Morgan Hill since 2003. So,
okay. Well, then how close to Morgan Hill? Like San Jose?
I grew up in Cupertino.
Okay. Well, Valley.
Before there was Apple, which is
right.
actually...
That put you back there.
Again, more salt and pepper.
Right.
So, yeah.
And you're also a musician.
I am.
And have had a lifelong love for music.
Passionate,
yeah. And so that, of course, is something that's near and dear to me as well, as the Bay Area music scene and what it has been and maybe hopefully what it will become again. Mm-hmm. So let's just kind of kick it off, man. Like Cupertino, like you're riding your bike, ring, ring, and mom's calling you home for supper. Like start wherever you want to start, man.
Yeah, well, so the backstory is I was born in Southern California. I was born in Inglewood. And whenever, well, just to drop, I know we're talking music more than anything else, but to drop a sports thing in here, my dad was a Dodgers fan. And I grew up I didn't grow up in LA, but I was born in LA. And so whenever I get into this conversation with people like wearing a Dodger hat, and I'll give them a hard time because, Giants Dodgers kind of fun little rivalry and the best rivalry in baseball, if you ask me. And I'll be like, why are you, come on, man, you're Dodgers. He's like, I was born in LA. And I'll say, I was too, and I got over it. That's no excuse, right?
we can all recover.
Yeah, that's right. So I was born down in LA. My dad worked for IBM, which back in the day, this is going to date me as well, but the joke was IBM stood for I've been moved. If you worked for IBM, it was almost like building a military brat. They just popped you around the country, right? So I was born within my first year, the IBM moved our family to Connecticut. So Danbury, Connecticut, in the middle of nowhere. Everything ends in a berry in Connecticut, apparently. So Danbury, Connecticut. When I was 3, they moved us to San Jose, and so my dad was working at the IBM off Cottle Road, and bought a house in Cupertino. He was weighing like, Cupertino or Saratoga, commuter town. He couldn't afford to live in San Jose, mind you. So he lived in the suburbs where it was cheap, which is super funny now, right?
Right.
So he's like, I'm going to slum it, and I'm going to commute from Cupertino. And then he was debating. It was like, he bought the house in 1973 in Cupertino, and he's told me this story many times, $33,000, right? Yeah. And he decided not to buy the house in Saratoga because it was 35.
If for anyone listening, because we do have listeners in Thailand and Germany and Brazil, actually. And so anyone who's in other parts of the country, but anyone who's not familiar with why we think this is so funny, I'll give a story real quick, if I may.
Yeah,
so there was a gentleman I met. He was 93 at the time. Mm-hmm. And he came from North Dakota when he was 17 years old during World War II and tried to enlist in the Navy. And they said, sorry, you're too young. So he went to work in the shipyards in Oakland. And he just kept pestering him until he still wasn't 18. And they're like, fine, whatever, sign up. You're close enough. Let's go. And he goes, in the Pacific. He's in the Navy 4 years, comes back, loves the area, buys a house in Saratoga for $17,900. Okay. The value of that house this would have been 5 or 6 years ago was $1.3 million, like $17,900 to $1.3 million. And one of the things I loved about the guy is he said, yeah, the kids can have the house. That's their inheritance. I bought myself a new Corvette when I turned 90.
Seems like a bad trade-off. I got to take the house, but I don't know. It might have been a really great Corvette. Who knows?
I don't know. But anyway, the point being is that to buy a house in Cupertino or in Saratoga, either one, at any point in history for $33,000 or $35,000 would now absolutely make you a millionaire.
I looked at
no doubt.
I looked at the house I grew up in recently. In the last few weeks, I looked it up on. I looked it up on Zillow, and you can actually see the market value of the house. Because I was having this conversation exactly about it. I'll fill in the rest of the story, and then I'll get to the denouement here. My dad sold that house in 1993. He moved back to L.A., and I was property management for it, and he had renters in there, and he sold it in 93. I said, Dad, why are you selling the house? Pre-Prop 13, you don't owe a lot of taxes on it. Come on, son.
Right.
You're killing the goose that lays the golden egg. He said, son, bought that house for $33,000, and it just appraised for $330,000. So it's now worth 10 times what it was when I bought it. And he said, it'll never be worth more.
Yeah,
he said that to me. And so I went the other day to look up that house, and it was 1.79 million was the appraised value. Yeah. And I'm talking, just to put that in perspective, this isn't a mansion. When people think 1.79 million, this is a 1,600 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath on less than a quarter acre. Well less. So anyway, that's Cupertino for you.
$1.8 million, 1,600 square feet.
Yeah. So the moral of the story is my father, when he was deciding between the two houses, should have bought them both. That would have been the smart move. The wise move was take two, Dad. But anyway, that was how we ended up in Cupertino. Bought this little house in a blue collar town, and it wasn't. It's hard to express for people who hear Cupertino now what it was then. And being that we're sitting in Morgan Hill, California, I'll tell you the reason that I moved to Morgan Hill when my youngest daughter was born. So I had a 3-year-old and an infant, and my ex-wife and I picked Morgan Hill to move to. It's just like Cupertino when I was a kid. It was exactly the same feeling. Small town, commuter town. It was about 60% residential, 40% agricultural. I used to walk through cherry orchards and walnut orchards on the way to school.
This is what is the most common thread of everyone's story, is that they would walk to school sometimes based on what fruit was ripe, so they could pick them.
There's more than one route
the way.
That's true.
And I'm just like, what? How heavenly is this idea? But continue.
And right across from the street I grew up in on Scotland Drive, my neighbors across the street, their backyard backed up to an orchard. And that orchard is now Highway 85.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I used to ride my bike and, take a BB gun out into what's now Highway 85 and, shoot at birds and, damn near break a leg every day. Like we just did crazy stuff back then. We were free and young and stupid and we didn't have bike helmets and somehow we survived. Actually, I wrote, to segue to music, I wrote a song about this basically recently and it's called Best Things of My Youth. Mm-hmm. And it's just about how, there's so many fond memories I have of my childhood growing up that are just their history. My kids will never experience that. And one of those things is, one of the things I just loved about growing up in the age when I did, and it's such a sad thing we've lost, is be home before the streetlights are on. Yep. That was it. Yep. Every day during the summer or weekends, I would just get up, have breakfast, watch my cartoons, whatever, hop on my bike. And I didn't have a cell phone. There was no GPS device. My parents didn't have any idea where I was.
I tell people the same thing. And it's like, as it got dark, right? Yep. Then the phone tree would happen. It's like, hi, Angela, is Austin over there? I think they're out there. It's time to go home, your mom, and that's how it all happened. Exactly. It's okay. Thank you, Mrs. Tate. And we'd go,
I remember the wind sprint because, none of us wore a watch. We weren't paying any attention. Yeah. It's just like, I don't know. It's like, it's getting afternoon. And then all of a sudden you look up and you realize, oh crap, it's starting to get dark. Right. And then everybody was like, home, right? We're just hustling as fast as we could. We have to beat the streetlights. You have to beat the streetlights. Right. But that freedom that we had as kids is just, it's lost, it's lost forever. And, could you imagine, turning your kids loose and being like, I don't know, come home. Cops show up at your door. Where's your son? I don't know. We left at 8:00 this morning. I just told him to be home before the streetlights are on. You'd have your kids taken away from you, right? But that freedom when we were kids meant we actually had to figure stuff out. We had to settle our own disputes. We had to figure out how to budget the $3 we brought with us, for the day.
Absolutely.
We had to navigate. I used to get on my bike in Cupertino, and it was not uncommon for us to go to Mountain View for the day. We would ride bikes back roads all the way to Mountain View.
That's awesome.
And back, and our parents didn't even know where we went, right? It was just, that freedom is just gone. And there were a whole bunch of things, including, calling songs into a request line and having 45s and, a lot of little things about my childhood that I just remember so fondly that my kids just can't relate to,
Yeah.
And every generation has that, right? That's not new. That's just... That's our sense of loss of the things from our childhood that our kids don't have. But it is still like, with progress always comes loss. There's never no progress happens for free. Something beautiful always dies, and something that's new, right?
I don't know if something beautiful dies. Wow, I had to think about that one. Wow. But what strikes me the most is this could arguably be the first time in our known existence that we couldn't let our kids go roam on their own.
Right.
Imagine another time in history where you might have said like marauders or something, but still at the same time, I guarantee your kids were out running around in the field and out in the trees, and they were climbing trees and they were doing their thing. And this is the first time. So when we talk about the loss, like, are we talking about the loss of hundreds of thousands of years of human existence? Tens of thousands of years of human existence that we're watching the loss of right now. And that's terribly sad to think that idea. But I have the exact thought you are talking about. Like, this is the story I tell myself about going out and being able to ride bikes and how amazingly enjoyable that was. And no one felt a threat, really. They felt a threat of like you getting run over by a car because you're an idiot, but it wasn't like, the kinds of threats that we see now.
Yeah, no, you're right. And there's a related thing, just having to work out our own disputes. And look, this is a
real world problem solving.
I can't remember the comic's name, so I'm sorry, I can't give proper credit here, but I saw a comedian recently who made a very funny bit that I thought it was funny, but it was spot on, right? That he's like, the world was a lot better place when you ran the risk of getting punched in the mouth. Right. And he was like, and then and of course everybody laughs, right? That's funny, but there's a reality to it. Like, this whole use your words thing, and there's look, the world's not a better place when you're not getting, punched in the mouth is not a good thing. But the reality is there was a time when there was instantaneous consequences for bad behavior. And as kids, we knew there were lines you didn't cross. And there were things you didn't do, and there was disrespect you didn't show. And now, I think, it's a good thing that kids don't run around punching each other in the face. I'm not trying, so please don't send those nasty letters to me. I'm not saying children should return to punching each other in the face, but we knew how to resolve disputes, and we knew there were lines you didn't cross, and we knew if there was a time, we had to figure that out for ourselves, where that line was, and that there were consequences when you did things that were, that were beyond a certain line. And I feel like today there's just a lot more entitlement, and, children don't have those same boundaries, and we see it
when you live so much of your life digitally, and there's no real physical accountability for your actions, right? I mean, the only accountability is like canceling or shaming or some kind of a thing like that, and then you go out into the real world and have to try to resolve a dispute. Is your reaction not the same as what it might have been online, where you blather away, but there's no real meat to what is happening?
It's amazing how everybody is like 6'9" and 390 pounds behind a keyboard. I'm real brave when I'm going to talk to you. Like, that's the dehumanization of the digital world, right? And the way, and even if it's not like a threat of physical, I'm not saying the threat of physical harm. I'm saying, just the confrontation of looking you in the eye and saying something. I know people who I know very well, and I know that they would never say to someone face to face the things that they say online. They just have no problem flaming somebody, disrespecting them, calling them names. And then you see that person out in public, and kind of like, what is that? Why can't we have the same decorum? The digital thing is amazing, and it's done so much, and the Valley, of course, is where it's all born, right? But it's also dehumanizing. It's also and it's I think it's there is definitely an ugly side to it that makes me super uncomfortable. And it's weird to be at the epicenter of it and participate in it, but sort of have this like frenemy thing with my social media. And this is I use Facebook, but I've really backed off on a lot of things, because it's a great place to exchange ideas, but people don't know how to do it.
Agreed.
Man, we got into philosophy.
We did. I know. We're supposed to be on the story of the valley, but this is a story of the valley at the same time, right? You said it yourself. Like, this is where it's all taking place. So we should talk about this. And it's something that I think a lot of people are talking about, and a lot of people are worried about. And I think that is key to it, is people are very worried right now. Like, they don't really, the future is uncertain. And when things are uncertain, and when there's not much purpose available to you, then that creates a real angst inside of you. And I think that gets played out across social media, because people are frustrated with other people not seeing their exact way,
right,
because this is so important, because guys, don't you understand? Like, it's all going to hell. Where's it all going? Why do you think this way, when clearly that's how it's all going to be ruined? Your way is going to ruin it. Well, your way is going to ruin it. And it is possibly just evolution, and it is possibly just media, just the fact that I talk about this too much maybe, but we're being monetized. That's the goal, is how do we make money off of us? And to be able to segment us, silo us, it makes it easier for them to target what it is that they're delivering to us, which means that they are more effective on how they monetize us.
Right. And the social media construct is, Facebook is more, sorry to pick on Facebook if there's any employees of Facebook out there, but this is real talk. I mean, Facebook is incentivized to keep you on the platform, keep you clicking.
Right.
So if they can feed you information that you agree with or like and make you click it, they're winning. And it doesn't matter whether that content is accurate.
That's right.
It doesn't matter whether that content is balanced. It doesn't matter whether that content is constructive to a civil dialogue. In fact, it's better if it isn't. And these echo chambers that Facebook has created are super dangerous, and they make me really uncomfortable. And as much as I enjoy the positive side of social media, and I just encourage people to visit our band's Facebook page.
Right. Well,
so I'm going to call out
part of the game.
I'm going to call out my own hypocrisy right now. Like, it is a really dangerous thing that we've created, and I think it's up to us. You can't expect the company that is monetizing you and has proven that, look, we know there's a lot of smart people that work there. It's working. They're making money. Look at Facebook's stock price. It works, right? But we can't expect them to, be the better angels who are going to decide, oh, well, let's make this a better, that's up to us. Like, we still are responsible for our behavior and our thought process and how we engage other human beings. And we have to hit the pause button and go, I'm not going to participate in this. And the fact that one person can have a feed that feeds them one set of information that is like extreme and often inaccurate, and another person who might have, a left-leaning and a right-leaning person would be entirely different news feeds that get more and more radicalized.
Yes.
And if you're going to let a tool like that, that's a tool. It's like a hammer. I mean, if I used a hammer and every time I used it, I woke up with a headache, I'd stop using it because I'd stop beating myself over the head with it, right? Like, you've got to figure out for yourself.
Addiction is a strange thing.
We have to treat this as any other tool. It's a tool that can do good things, and a tool that can do bad things. I think we have to start taking some accountability. It's easy to go, the corporations, blah, blah, blah. But look, you're the user. You got the off button. You know.
It is right. No, that's absolutely right. The corporations are doing what the corporations are supposed to do.
Right.
And I hate saying those words, but the corporation's mandate is not to make us better people. The corporation's mandate is to make money for their shareholders.
Yep.
Period.
Exactly. Yep.
And until we're going to change that system, and I don't want to get into changing that system necessarily, but until there is a different approach to it, then they're just simply going to continue to do that.
Yep.
And so it has to be on us. And what really concerns me is when people tell me some news bit, some headline, and I go, where did you hear that?
Yeah. And they say it so authoritatively too.
Yeah, right. And they go,
I read it
on
online.
Facebook, right? And I go, okay, like, what was the source? And they're like, well, I don't know, but it looked, and that's what kills me. It looked.
Yeah.
It looked.
Yeah.
It looked. Like, what does that mean,
So
man?
basically, I need to be a 9-year-old with an account to fool you. Yeah.
I don't have to actually rationally think through what information I'm ingesting. As a matter of fact, I'm not even going to ingest the whole thing. I'm just going to take the headline and assume the rest.
Yep.
And then I'm going to go and tell everyone else that is what is happening in the world.
And half those headlines are clickbait. If you click them, the story often doesn't even relate to the headline, right?
Absolutely.
Because the headline doesn't have to be truth in advertising. They just want you to click it, right?
Exactly.
That's how
no
they get
one's
paid.
reading the article, man. They're looking at the centerfold, right?
Yeah,
They're just looking at the pictures.
It
looked.
I'm not knocking looking at centerfolds. I was speaking of my youth. No, my wife's listening to this. I do not look at centerfolds.
Sherry.
Baby, I just look at pictures of you. I swear. That's the truth.
Angel was a centerfold.
Hey, Jay Giles Band. Amen.
All right, back to Silicon Valley and your youth.
Yeah, so I had Cupertino was this awesome place to grow up, and it just bears no resemblance to today. I was just driving around Cupertino. I was there with my wife. We were driving through there on our way to a winery. God bless California. So we're driving through, and I was literally like driving through my old neighborhood where I used to ride a bike. And look, we're a married couple, so this is true for everybody. I told her this, and she said, yes, honey, I know. You've said this to me before. But I just like to say it out loud again because I'm driving through my neighborhood, and I'm like, I don't recognize any of this. It's like, I know I grew up here, but I didn't. Like, and that old thing, like, you can never go home again is true. And it's not because home isn't there. It's just because it's not the same place anymore. Sure. Cupertino bears no resemblance to where I grew up. There was a granary on the corner where Apple headquarters is, and I remember distinctly how that looked, and again, Highway 85 is an orchard, right? And so it's still the same place, but it doesn't feel like home to me, right? I have no nostalgia for Cupertino other than I really enjoyed the place the way it was then, and I have fond memories of it. And it is how I ended up in Morgan Hill, So that's sort of like on the edge of a big urban area, but still small enough to feel like a small town and to have a little agriculture nearby. And I have to admit, it's the progress is not a bad thing. Like, I don't begrudge somebody for turning a cherry orchard into homes. People need a place to live.
Sure.
Part of the reason why we have such a housing crunch in the Bay Area and why California housing is so high is this NIMBY attitude of, not my backyard. And I read these articles. Sorry, I didn't mean to get political. I'm going to try to steer away from this. But the economist in me, that's my undergrad degree, tells me more housing means lower housing prices, right? So whenever we're saying no more housing, we're saying we like high prices. So I don't begrudge anybody for wanting their piece of the American dream, build a house. Where else are you going to build a house? You're going to build a house on, an orchard, because it's not economically viable to do that anymore. But every time we lose a little piece of agriculture in Morgan Hill, I feel that little like, oh, there it goes. A little piece by piece, it's changing, and progress is inevitable. But it's still, it is kind of come back to that thing that when something new is born, something dies, right? Mm-hmm. And that's true in the universe, right? I mean, planets are formed out of stars exploding. It's like in death there's birth, right? So
supernovas.
I don't mean to get like too philosophical, but it's a real thing, and I'll never begrudge somebody wanting to move on and make progress. But there's definitely a little loss in that. But anyway, it was an amazing place to grow up. I went to Homestead High School. Go Mustangs. Mm-hmm. Kennedy Junior High. We'll throw a little shout outs for some people that are from the area. But I went to Homestead High. It was an amazing experience. Class of '88. The valley was starting to change. It was really HP was doing its thing. And
I want to stop at high school.
Go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So we're 17 years old.
There are certain things that the statute of limitations does not apply to. So if I take the fifth on anything here, it's like most things there's a statute of limitations, but some things I'm gonna have to keep. And again, my wife is listening.
Right. So what were you driving?
Oh man, I'm so glad you asked me that.
Yeah.
You ready for this?
Yeah, hit me.
I had a 1957 Chevy Bel Air.
Whoa! What color?
It was that seafoam green.
Yeah, sure.
In fact, my Stratocaster, my American-made Strat is exactly the same color for that reason. Nice. I bought that guitar because it's the same color my '57 Chevy. Yeah.
What we got? What, automatic, 3 on the tree, 4 on the floor. What
this was? It was the Power Glide was originally what was in it, because I had it came with the 283. It was the 210, not the Bel Air. So this came with the 283 2-barrel carburetor and the 2-speed automatic Power Glide, and I built a Corvette engine, and it's actually a really sad story. I rebuilt the 327 out of a 67 Corvette. And I had a turbo 350 transmission I was dropping into that thing. As you can tell, I took 3 years of auto shop. And I got preferential treatment because I was pulling a 57 Chevy in.
Yeah, right. Stephen, why don't you go ahead and just bring your Chevy in again today?
The rule in auto shop was you had to, whatever project you had to do, whether you had to drove it or you pushed it out of the stall, when the period was over, your car had to leave the stall.
Right.
My car sat there the whole quarter. So I was rebuilding that thing top to bottom. Nice. And I'll never forget, Doug Fournier was my auto shop teacher, and people would gripe, well, why does Beard get to leave his car? And you come in with a 57 Bel Air, and you can keep it. Nice. You can keep one of the stalls tied up too. Yeah, but I was rebuilding that thing top to bottom. It was a beautiful old car that we bought. I bought it from the original owner. And the only reason he was selling it is because he was going blind and he lost his license. The original owner, it was pristine condition, but it just needed to get hot rodded.
Right,
basically,
yeah. 283, okay,
yeah.
But 327,
yeah. So he was just a nice old guy.
Those are motors for anyone who doesn't know.
Anybody the cubic inch displacement. So the one of the reasons he sold me the car was I was just so passionate about the car, and I was just, oh my god, this is my favorite car on the planet. Still is, by the way.
He came out in the morning, get his paper. You're like asleep against it.
Pretty much.
Hi, Mr. Wilson. Are you ready to sell it yet today?
So he sells me this car, and it had 189,000 miles, all original. The heads had never been off the car. That car would have run forever. And so I was, in the process of high rodding it, and I was out on the 4th of July one night, coming home from a friend's house, and like 1 block from the house. And I pull up this stop sign, and I stop. I look both ways. I start to go, and the whole world turned upside down. I got rear-ended by a drunk driver. The police estimate he was doing 50 miles an hour, never touched his brakes. slammed into the back of that car, and no seatbelts in those cars, right? I didn't even have a seatbelt. So that thing rocked my world pretty good, but I didn't have a scratch on me. The guy who hit me was in a Volkswagen Jetta, and he broke both of his legs and went straight to the hospital and was in bad shape. But unfortunately, bent the frame, and the car was totaled. So, yeah.
All right. So
hold on for a sec.
All right, yep.
I need a tissue. I need a tissue.
You got a hanky somewhere.
I lost that car, and I feel like I owe that old man an apology because I never fully rebuilt this car, and I didn't mean to, but I got it totaled. I did, it was nothing I could do. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't my fault.
Not your fault.
Thank you for saying that. I needed
no,
that
it's
right
okay. Now. It's a healing space.
Steve. I feel like
it's a healing space.
I feel like I'm in what was that movie? What was it? Robin Williams, and it was with the kid who was writing the formulas on the chalkboard.
Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting. Yeah, I'm in Good Will Hunting right now. It's not your fault.
Right.
So, this is the part where I break down and cry.
Great movie though.
Fantastic flick. Yeah, this is my Good Will Hunting moment. Yeah. So I had this '57 Chevy that I spent my whole high school career, upgrading, and I loved it. And I belonged to the Classic Shark Car Club, and I had a '57 Chevy jacket and the whole thing, and and I was playing football, which was a lot of fun. And boy, a lot of people say high school was tough, and I'm not going to say that those people are wrong. For me, junior high was tough.
Right.
High school was amazing. High school was like, I'm not going to say the best time of my life, honey. I know you're listening. It's not the best time of my life, but it was one of the best times of my life. Right? It was really coming into my own, and I was playing sports and having a blast and totally into music and just enjoying some of the best shows, and the bands that were out. Van Halen was in their heyday, and and then working on cars and
this is where I want to go with it. So we're 17, we got a 57 Bel Air.
Yeah. And
it's Friday night.
Yeah.
What happens? Where'd you go? Did you shoot up in the Santa Cruz Mountains? That's always my idea. I'm a van guy, right? Got the van, love a van. My idea, it's like I got the van, I got like a sack of burgers, right? They cost you like $1 for 10 of these things, right?
You're close.
Probably have a sack of weed, I'm sure, as well in there, and like a case of beer or something, and a group of people and a couple of guitars, and then you just go up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. You do the thing in the redwoods, and it's amazing. That's my dream.
Do you have a van out front? Because the Santa Cruz Mountains, we could be there tonight.
No, I could do right that there, exact dude, right there. Let's go get some burgers.
As soon as this is over, let's do that. I don't care if it's Monday night. I'm in.
Hell yeah.
For those people who live in Silicon Valley and grew up during this time in the 80s, this will really resonate. This will hit bullseye. And for everybody else, it's going to sound like the dumbest thing anybody's ever done. But the most common thing that we did back in the day, especially if you had a cool car, was we cruised the El Camino Real. So in Sunnyvale, there was this, there were these very definitive boundaries where everybody knew where you flipped the U-turn and you went back. And all night long, the windows were rolled down. The radios were playing as loud as you could. Girls and boys leaning out the back of the cars.
American
radios
graffiti.
Were playing. It was American graffiti in the 80s. It really was. And there were these spots that you would stop. It was Wiener Schnitzel parking lot, by the way. That was the hookup joint. That was where you picked up the hot babes. Right. So if you were cruising along and you got a nice look from a honey and she winked at you and you waved at her and whatever, everybody knew, well, then it's on. We're going to pull over. We're going to pull over at the Wiener Schnitzel, and I will not make the hot dog joke right now. I'm not doing it. I'm not going there. But I said I didn't.
But you did.
You're not doing it. I said, see, there was no joke. I just said there was no comedic relief in this moment.
Of course not, no.
So we pull over, and that's where you got her phone number, and you talked and whatever. And by the way, the best thing to be cruising in, if you didn't have just like a badass hot rod,
you did.
Well, I did. Yes, thank you very much. Was a pickup truck. Because everybody sat in the back.
Everybody's in the back.
You'd have 5 or 6 people packed in the back of a pickup truck, and you'd pull right up next to a police officer, and he would just look at you, and you'd look at him, and you'd wave, and off you went. It was the most normal thing ever, right? And now I think back on it, and I'm like, man, this is like, I feel like we violated somebody's safe space or something back then. I'm not sure, but you couldn't get away with that in a million years.
No.
And by the way, that's in the song too, Best Things of My Youth, riding in the back of a pickup truck. Because those were just amazing times, you know, and a buddy of mine had an El Camino, the Chevy El Camino, which was basically a truck with a, you know, car.
Right.
You know, it was like the mullet of vehicles, basically. It's like,
That's a good description.
Car in the front, truck in the back, right? It's like, so we were cruising along in the mullet mobile, and that was, dude, it was a blast. I loved sitting in the back because you had a better chance at like the honeys seeing you and you seeing them, and and that sounds like such boredom, just burning a tank of gas, driving around circles. Man, we would do that for 3 or 4 hours, and it was just so much fun. But yeah, driving to Santa Cruz, we did that a lot. We used to try to see who could get the best time, you know, from 280 and 17 to the beach.
God, 17.
And that was, it is a miracle.
Yeah. 17 is a really,
Highway
even
17's
today, it's they've done work on it and stuff. And like another story I'll try to tell for people that don't know Highway 17. One time I was coming across 17 and a guy's in a Mustang, and it gets so tight and people still try to drive as hard as they can through there that this Mustang actually drove up on a concrete divider, like a 3-foot tall concrete divider, like drove up on it, smoke, burning, rubber, paint, stuff flying off. And he had no choice because everyone was so fast and so tight on those mountain roads that he had to just keep on going.
You just rode
Everybody just kept going. He hit the lane, and everybody. And I was on a motorcycle too. Oh, I that might have been the last time I rode that 17 on a motorcycle.
17's a scary road.
Hated that road.
And
I grew up in the mountains. I grew up on roads that
right.
are not as well protected as that. It's just the whole combination of everything.
The thing about Highway 17, for those who don't know it, it is a highway. It's not a freeway, by the way. It's like it's classified as a mountain road, which is well, I think in parts the speed limit's 50 on that road, but it's driven like a freeway, right?
It is,
and it's windy enough, and a lot of you know, you're going up Santa Cruz Mountain, you're going down the other side, and on the back side of it, whichever side you're coming down, going or coming. It's pretty easy to lose sense of your speed and get into a corner, and it's faster. You're going faster than you think you are, right? And so there's a lot of accidents there. Now, when I got my license at 16, 1986, they had just put the medians up. So those concrete dividers you're referencing didn't used to be there.
Right.
You used to be able to go over into oncoming traffic, and that used to happen. They had one too many head-on collisions on that road, and they put that up. And the reason I tell that story is we were bragging about whatever our best time was over 17, right? When I was in auto shop of all places. I spent some time there.
Surprise.
And this is when I was like a sophomore, and it was like first done the run, you know, and I did it in whatever it was, 30 minutes or whatever. And this guy's like, I did it in like 17 minutes or whatever. His number was just way less, right? I'm like, come on, that's not even possible. And he goes, dude, they just put those medians up. You used to be able to cut across all 4 lanes.
Oh my gosh, he was straightening the curves, man.
Are you kidding me? Going into head-on traffic? Oh, I mean, I don't even care. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, back then, there weren't as many people on the road, but people did it.
Yeah.
That's nuts. So yeah, 17. But we used to love going over the beach. My sophomore year in high school, I majored in a class called The Beach.
Oh, sorry. I was a little slow on the uptake on that one.
My parents one time came to, I can't remember, something happened, and my parents came to school. And they were never the kind to follow up on me, right? So they came to school for something and needed to check me out of class. And I wasn't in class. And so they go down to the attendance office. And they're like, where's my son? He's supposed to be in class. And we have this system. And back then, the way you got out of class, you could skip any class you wanted. But to get back into that class, you had to come with a note. So you'd write the note. You'd walk to the attendance office. You'd be like, hi, Billy needs to be, out. And then you'd sign it from Billy's mom. And then you'd hand I don't know why I just did that voice. And I
loved it.
And I'm also not Billy, so I'm not sure. Maybe that was it. I was anonymizing it. I don't want to be in trouble. So you'd have to, sign this note. You'd hand it in, and they'd give you a pass to get in class. So I just went to all the girls in school that had good handwriting, right? Because my handwriting looked like a monkey drew on his foot, right? So I would go to all the girls in school that had good handwriting, and they would sign as my mom. So my parents open up the folder, and here's like 97 notes, right? All in different handwriting, all on like torn pieces of binder paper. Like, really, your parents would do that? Like, it was the most thinly veiled, you know. And you know, so I've got all these notes out on the counter, and I'll never forget the vice principal goes, why don't you tell your parents who wrote these notes? And I'm like, a lot of girls.
I couldn't remember all of them.
Really, I do not have an inventory on the names of everybody who wrote these notes. Whoever was available, obviously. I don't think I look very discriminating in my
You look like you have good penmanship. Here, just sign Marjorie right here.
I spent so much time at the beach. It was filthy. It was just ridiculous. We used to just go over, and football practice would be 6th and 7th period. Mm. I'd go to 1st and 2nd period because 2nd period was auto shop, and I didn't want to miss it. 1st period was wood shop, and I didn't want to miss it. 3rd period, I had to think. I'd be like, guys, you want to go to the beach? Right? So, 1st and 2nd period, 3rd period, out. And I had to time it where I got back in time for football practice and be in pads, right? And that was basically, I did that way more often than I should. I don't even know how I graduated high school, honestly.
Would you guys like camp out on the beach on the weekends? Was that a thing?
Yeah, there were certain beaches that you could do like campfires and stuff, so we would do that. We usually avoided those ones though because the police patrolled those pretty carefully, and generally speaking, as you know, 16 and 17-year-old boys, we wanted to have substances with us that were not that were frowned upon by the authorities. Yeah, I got arrested at the beach one time. Nice. I did. I was carrying a 12-pack of beer to the beach, back to the beach where we had finished the first 12-pack of beer.
Reload time.
We couldn't carry everything on the first pass, right? So we made it to the beach. We all drank the 12-pack of beer, and then there's like one more 12-pack, and so I went back for it, and I'm walking along, boop, 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 with the 12-pack of beer, and woo, here comes an officer up, and I set it down, and I walk away like I have no idea whose that is, right? And he's like, oh, son, come over here. So I got arrested, and he released me on my own recognizance, but I remember going home that night and going, okay, so I got to tell my mom I got arrested for possession of beer in Santa Cruz, and it's Tuesday. This is going to be a fun story. Wow. But it was, yeah, I mean, somehow I survived it. I don't know if I should have, but I did.
All right. So let's move the story forward a bit.
Okay.
So I've gotten to relive your high school years. Thank you.
And I made it out with having to confess any of the really bad stuff. So
yeah, well,
that's good.
Yeah. We'll talk about those later.
When you're not recording, I'll shit.
Let's start again. Yeah. So let's get on up into. You mentioned before I stopped you that's when the valley started to change.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, it's no secret this is Silicon Valley, and they didn't call it that back then because it wasn't yet. But that's when it started, right? And
we're like 19.
Well, Fairchild, I don't have my exact date on when this happened, but Fairchild Semiconductor was the very beginning of it, and that would have been, late 70s is probably when it first started. Sure. But it really didn't impact the valley. It didn't feel any different, even with HP in the garage and everything, until you started getting into the late 80s and you started noticing things were changing. People were getting rich here. People were moving here for jobs that, they didn't used to be. And one by one, those cherry orchards and those walnut orchards were going away. And it was, a lot of the same things that are happening here in Morgan Hill, except for we don't have this company called Apple that happens to be in our midst, right? So Apple was a big force multiplier, of course. And they went through there. And for those too young to remember it, Apple was a phenomenon in, the early 80s. And by the way, Wozniak and Jobs both went to my high school.
Oh, wow.
They were Homestead guys. I got a story about that too. I'll share that here in a minute. Apple was a phenomenon, and then they tanked. What people don't remember is Apple almost went out of business. Mm-hmm. There was a moment, and this is ironic, the CEO of Dell Computer, when Steve Jobs had just gone back and retaken over his company, the CEO of Dell Computer basically said, Apple's I'm paraphrasing, but Apple's a fake. I mean, they're not worth a darn. They should just return, if Steve Jobs had any credibility, just return the money to their shareholders. They're worthless, right? and Dell was riding high, and like, look at it now.
Yeah, no.
Dell's in the tank, and you would have done pretty well if you bought Apple stock when Michael Dell made that comment. Yeah. But yeah, going back to Wozniak and Jobs, so I'm going to return to high school for just a second because this is actually a pretty cool story. They're both a little bit older than me, so they went through Homestead. They were in and out before I was there, but I had a lot of teachers who had them as students. And they were, kind of famous at that point. Everybody knew who they were, although nobody knew how big Apple was going to get.
Sure.
Right? But, it's not often you have a big company that's on the cover of, Fortune magazine or whatever, founded at your high school. Steve Jobs had gone up to my history teacher, and I won't share his name right now because I don't know if he would want me to share this story, but he had gone, and really nice guy. He'd gone up to him after class one time his senior year and said, hey, me and Wozniak, we're going to start this computer company. And we need $2,000 to start this company. If you'll give us $2,000, I'll give you 2,000 shares of Apple stock. And of course, being a very wise man, that teacher kicked Jobs out of the classroom and told him he's not stupid. If I give you $2,000, you're going to spend the summer in Mexico getting high. Yeah. And I'm not so sure he didn't do that summer, but...
might have been key to the success.
Yeah, he might have. Get the creative juices flowing.
Right.
But he calculated at the time, and this was in the 80s, he's like, if I'd given him that $2,000, I'd be a multimillionaire. Sure. Well, imagine now. I mean, goodness, that would have been, who knows, 500 million? Who knows? It'd be worth a lot of money for original shares. But yeah, there were kind of legends around that area, and of course, legends in the Valley. And I've had a chance to meet Wozniak a couple of times. Really nice guy, pretty down to earth. But that was my little 6 degrees of separation with Wozniak.
Wow, that's awesome.
Pretty cool stuff. But you were asking me something else, and I went on a tangent.
So it's like now we're talking about tech coming in, right?
Yeah.
So you had cherry orchards that now are 6 and 8 lane freeway, 85 that connects 2 ends of 101 essentially,
right? Yep.
So that we can all get to the valley, up and down the valley faster. And where once was a granary is big concrete walls and developments and whatnot. So this is an effect of tech moving into the area. As you have seen, you yourself, you work in logistics.
I do, yeah.
Right?
I do. Yeah.
How much of that would you like? What is your involvement with tech? Is there involvement with tech?
Interesting. Yes and no. So my history is fully formed by tech because even my father relocating back here in 1973 was IBM moving him here, right? Sure. And then they went to move him to Dallas a few years later, and he said no, and he stayed, and then it was Tandem and all these other companies that he worked for. But so tech was my reason for landing in California. It was a little bit before that was a fashionable thing to do, right? IBM was all over. They're headquartered in White Plains, New York, right? So it was an anomaly that happened to send my dad here at the time. It wasn't known, for tech, but it is what landed me in the Bay Area. I've never been a tech person, but because I've been in Silicon Valley my whole life, I've worked with and for a lot of tech companies, right? At the end of the day, anything that needs to physically be moved, right? I mean, GoPro's a tech company, but somebody's got to figure out how to move their product from here to there, right? So it is kind of funny though. It's a thing about living in this valley. You meet at cocktail parties. What's one of the first things you ask somebody? What do you do, right? What do you do?
Right.
Which is a really interesting question. It's like a sociology question. Like that's the first thing I need to do to compartmentalize you is figure out what your career is. And from that, I'm going to try to derive your socioeconomic status and figure out whether I should keep talking to you. I mean, that's kind of what we're doing, right? Which is like always creep me out about that question a little bit. But, we do our brains, we need to like put people in buckets so we can manage, right? So what do you do is one of the first questions, right? And I know that nobody wants to talk about logistics, right?
I do, and I'll tell you why I do. Because I'm concerned with environment. I'm concerned with efficiency. I'm concerned with also AI, displacement of jobs. And logistics play into all of this. I actually was involved with a company, like
we were kind of looking at an advisory role for me as far as my knowledge of construction equipment and whatnot goes.
Yep.
And this company, I can't give too much away, but their product, genius product. I think what ended our relationship was when the light bulb went on for me, and I was like, you're getting ready to disrupt so much with this, like so many jobs. Like, and one of the things I said was logistics. Absolute logistics, because it employs a lot of people. It's how all these things get to where they go. And if it is done inefficiently, then our resources that are available to us at the rate and demand that we're continuing to ask from it, logistics affects all of us. So I have no problem talking about logistics.
Well, it's I'll just for a 30-second plug for the industry. I've spent my whole career in logistics. By the way, total accident. There's nobody, sitting there in elementary school. What do you want to do when you grow up, Billy? Well, I want to be a logistician. Like that. Right. No, that's not a thing. Right. That doesn't happen, right? So my career, like many people's, is like John Lennon said, it's life is what happens when you're busy making other plans, right? So I had this whole thing mapped out, right? I was playing football at De Anza College, Cupertino, go Dons, or as we like to affectionately say, USC, which is University of Southern Cupertino. So I was playing football there, and I was taking real estate classes. So I was going to do real estate investing. I had done some construction work in the summers. My dad's best friend was a construction guy. So every summer I'd go pound a hammer and do demolition and learn how to frame. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, but I don't think I want to, quite, sweat this much, professionally for the rest of my life. Right. I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll buy, I was thinking, they didn't call it this back then, but I was like, I'll flip homes. I'll invest in homes. And then I'll, renovate them, and then I'll sell them or rent them, and then I'll invest in other homes, and I'll just kind of make that a thing, right? And then that way I could just kind of, enjoy the fruit of my own labor a little bit more, right? So that was my plan. So I'm going to school for real estate investing, and I needed a job. I was working my way through college, and my parents weren't in a position to contribute, and so. Man, back then, working your way through college was a lot easier than it is now.
Right? I mean, what was your annual tuition?
De Anza was probably like $2,500 or something, right? It was nothing. But I still had to pay my own way. I had to pay my bills. I had to pay my books. And so, I'm a young kid, and I'm also trying to play sports. So I'm trying to figure out, like, how can I maximize the money I can make in the near term? And a buddy of mine goes, hey, UPS is hiring. It's like, and you got to remember, I was playing football. So my afternoons were practice. So I couldn't work in the afternoons. And Saturdays were games. So my weekends were half spoken for. And so that was getting really hard to find work. A buddy of mine was like, hey, UPS is hiring. You just go down there and you unload these trailers. I did it last summer. And he's like, oh, it's a great workout. I'm like, perfect. I'll get my cardio in while I'm working, right? Right?
Coach will be proud.
So I go down there and I'm like, hey, I want to unload boxes, right? And they're like, how long do you think you want to do this job? And I'm thinking, well, maybe till football season's over, right? Who knows? Maybe 3 months. But I'm not an idiot, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to be doing my lower division at De Anza for 2 years, so I think 2 years. You're hired. Boom. It was like, wow. That was it. That was the entire interview.
Job
right?
Interview right there.
They never asked if I was a serial murderer. They never.
No background.
Never asked somebody.
Don't piss in a cup.
Are you part of a criminal gang? No, just like how long? 2 years? Yes.
Are you a compulsive liar?
Didn't ask me that either. Although it's probably not a productive question.
I don't think it would be, would it?
True, so anyway, so I go in there and I'm like unloading these. I'm like picking up trailers and shaking them until the boxes come out. Like I'm just unloading it. Like, and the thing is, what they didn't realize was I was trying to get my workout in at work. They thought I was just a hard worker. Like I was like beating every level, boom, 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 and I'm sweating through my shirt, right? And I'm like, this is awesome. I don't have to go to the gym this afternoon. I got my workout in at work, right? That's awesome. And they start promoting me, right? And because I don't know, I guess they thought I actually had work ethic or something. So, I mean, in all seriousness, I do. But that was, but I think they didn't quite understand why I was busting
the motivation, right? The exact motivation. But hey, whatever worked, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I get promotion after promotion after promotion, and I'm eligible for tuition reimbursement, and I've got great benefits. And one day I look up and I go, I guess I'm a logistics guy. That was like kind of how it happened, right? And it was just a wonderful proving ground. I spent 15 years at UPS, and I just kind of fell into it, really by accident.
Yeah.
That happens to a lot of people I know. But yeah, so I've never really been in tech, but I've worked for a lot of tech companies. I ran fulfillment and logistics for Tile, if you know those guys, the little Bluetooth trackers. Sure. I did that for a couple of years. I currently work for a company called Flex. They're based out of Seattle, and all we are is tech, but it's logistics tech. Mm-hmm. I run the team that finds all the warehouses that actually do the work, and then the tech team builds the application, the OMS, TMS, WMS, that type of stuff. I won't get into
those are all
acronyms.
Fulfillment.
Yeah. So interestingly, though, getting back to the story, I love it. I interrupt myself all the time. I was starting to tell the story about the cocktail party.
I'm enjoying it. So
continue. Thank you. The thing is, I'm going to listen back to this, and there's going to be 2 or 3 things I started saying that I'll realize I never finished.
Right. Well, we'll do a part 2.
But I remembered this one. You're at a cocktail party. What do you do, right? I'm standing here in Silicon Valley, and I'll say something like glib, like logistics. Like, let's move on. I got other things to talk about than how I make my money, right? And like software, like cloud SaaS, like no actual logistics, like product that moves from here to there. The stuff doesn't teleport to your grocery store. It gets moved in a truck, and people and they just look at me like I'm speaking a foreign language or something, right? It's like, and then inevitably there's the long pause, pretty much what you just did. So crab cakes are really good, right? It's like the conversation. It's a conversation killer every time, which is fine with me because, I talk about work all day. Like if I go to a cocktail party, I'd much rather talk to you about my band or, whatever you saw on television the other night or whatever crazy things happening in the world right now. There's a lot of things I'd rather talk about than my job, right?
Right, so, sure. Yeah. Well, let's talk about something else, by God.
All right, let's do that.
So let's talk about music. Let's talk about again. We got the Bel Air, right? Friday night. Mm-hmm. There's no game on Friday night, right? That's Saturday.
Oh, we played on Friday night. So it's Friday Night Lights, high school. Come on, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude,
it's okay.
I'm a music guy, man.
Hey, we didn't play all year round. We only had football's only part of the season.
All right, Cow Palace.
Cow Palace, yeah. Right? So many good shows.
Okay, let's hit it. Tell me about the Cow Palace, man.
My first Cow Palace show was 1984, Van Halen. And this is really disappointing. This is a sad thing I have to confess to you right now. I've seen Van Halen with David Lee Roth twice. Once that show, 1984, and of course they broke up that year. And the second time, well, that was their last album anyway. I don't think they broke up till 85, but that was their last tour. And then again on the reunion tour, and they were 2 of the worst shows I've ever seen.
Gosh.
Just god awful. And both of them were the same thing. Look, Eddie's a god, and God rest in peace, right? God love you, Eddie, amazing. David Lee Roth was an absolute, I can't, like, can we swear on this? No, he was a shit show. Just a disaster in both of them. 3 different songs that he botched the lyrics to, and I'm watching them, and and of course Cow Palace, it was for those who don't know, is like it's seats in the bowl, and then there's the general admission on the floor, and that's where the action was, baby, right? So me and my buddies, we fought our way to the front of the Cow Palace. Like, you're pushing elbows and you're doing football all that. Players, yeah, exactly. We're getting up there. So by the time Van Halen takes the stage, we're like 9 rows from the stage, and just amazing view. And David Lee Roth is trashed. He's drunk as a skunk when he took the stage, right? And Eddie Van Halen's doing that thing where he plays every solo note for note and just perfection, and every time David Lee Roth screws up, you could see him looking over at him like, Eddie's just pissed. And I remember walking out of there that night and saying to my friends, I'm like, they're going to break up. Like, Eddie's so pissed at David Lee Roth. And he botched a bunch of songs. Like he did like the first lyric, chorus, first lyric instead of going a second, right? He did a bunch of that. And then Jamie's crying. He forgot the lyrics 3 times, and then he goes, "Oh, F it," and moves on. And it was terrible. Wow. It was just
that's sad.
Awful.
That is sad.
And every time I saw him with Sammy Hagar, it was one of the best shows I ever saw. They were just tight, but man, I really wish I could have been to one of the great David Lee Roth shows, because that was the best stuff they did on the album. So I like the Sammy version. Don't get me wrong, but Van Halen 1 and 2 and Diver Down and there's just some great material there, and it would have been awesome to see them like really represent like they did when they first came out, But yeah, Van Halen was the first one in '84. That was not my first concert. My first concert was Y&T.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Bay Area band.
And I have seen more Y&T so many times I can't remember. I'm not sure. Probably 15, 18 times on it. I don't know. But it definitely was one of my favorite bands as a kid. And I loved that they were Bay Area, right? And Joey Alves, rest in peace, rhythm guitar player, went to Freeman High. That was our rival in Sunnyvale. So, a little South Bay connection there. All the boys were from the Bay. And met David Meniketti a couple times. Mike Vanderheel, let me say his name properly. The current drummer is a friend of mine, really great guy. Also a South Bay guy. But I went to see them a bunch of times. My very first show was, I believe it was '84. It might have been '83, but it was at the Santa Clara County Convention, Santa Clara Fairgrounds. Sorry, in San Jose, right, where they have the flea market now, right. And they used to have a lot of concerts there. I think they still do from time to time, but it's been a while since I've seen something good there. Well, COVID, I haven't seen anything good in a long time. But that was the first show, and so we went to the fair for the day, me and my friends. I was 13 years old, and I've got my Y&T shirt on and just like so jacked about this show, right? And we're walking around, and we turn a corner, and there's Dave Meniketti and Philip Kennemore, the bass player, and Meniketti's lead singer, lead guitar player. Turn a corner, and we just froze. It was like, hold on, stop. It was I couldn't have responded any more shocked if I'd turned a corner and there was a lion. I was like, hold on. That's pretty much how I did. Freeze. Don't make any sudden movements. I don't know why. It's just what I did, right? I stopped my buddies like, it's them, right? It's them. And Meniketti totally made us, right? He saw the way we responded, and he walked right up to us and just, I'm not saying like he said, hey guys, come to the show tonight. Awesome. Have a good night. Those guys stood there and talked to us for probably 15, 20 minutes.
Oh, man.
And we were talking about, and they knew the high schools that we went to.
Take notes, musicians.
They were just.
Be cool.
They were amazing.
Be cool people.
And I tell you what, I've been a lifelong fan. I probably would have been anyway, but I've always loved Y&T because just the way, to this day, Dave Meniketti will not do a paid meet and greet. Doesn't believe in it, but he's commented on it many times.
Nice.
He's like, if you're a fan and you buy a ticket to our show, like it's my privilege to come out and talk to you after the show. I don't charge you extra for that. That's like, you're buying the records, you're coming to the shows, right? So just awesome. And what an underrated guitar player, Meniketti. I don't know how much of his stuff you've gotten into, but man, that boy can play, just flat out play. And my dream guitar always was a Sunburst Les Paul, because that was what Dave Meniketti played. I had the poster with him holding that guitar on my wall.
Many young guitarists have spent time with those magazines,
salivating over that guitar. That's so cool. I was looking at that thing. I didn't have the foggiest idea how to play it. I was like, that guitar is awesome.
When I finally bought a Les Paul, like I was like 20 or 21, something like that. I'd been playing guitar for a few years. I had no clue what to do with it, man. It was so much guitar. It was so, I'm going to get one now, but it was so much guitar for me back then. I could not do anything with it.
They're big. They're big. They're heavy.
They're a thing.
But boy, I tell you, and I've never owned a Gibson Les Paul, but my favorite guitar that I own right now is the Heritage version. It's an H150. It's the Les Paul, their version. And for those who don't know the story, the Heritage was when Gibson moved the factory from Kalamazoo, Michigan to Nashville. The employees bought up the factory, and they bought up some of the original wood stock and all the original equipment, and they were building the guitars to the original specs, right? And so you can get your SG, you can get your your Les Paul. They're called other things, but you know them when you look at them, right? And it's a very, very nice guitar. I love the tone off that thing. So and I have the Sunburst. There's no accident about that. That was inspired by Dave Meniketti for sure. But I saw some great shows. I saw Aerosmith there. Years later, saw Tesla there. I mean, there was a lot. That was kind of the spot before they built
Cow Palace.
Cow Palace. Yeah. Sorry, I did that thing again. Where thanks for bringing me back. SAP Center wasn't built yet, And so for the indoor venues, wintertime concerts, I mean, in the summertime, you could be out at Shoreline. You could be out, outdoors at the Redwood Amphitheater at Great America. For those who know, that was a fun place to see some shows. Saw some good ones there, too. But the indoor spot back then was the Cow Palace, right? And once SAP opened, I haven't heard of a show at that place in a long time, but I would love to go back. I would love to go back and just walk around because I saw all the shows I saw there. And for sports fans, a lot of people don't remember the San Jose Sharks played their first 2 seasons of the Cow Palace.
No kidding.
I went to.
Maybe we need to make a pilgrimage up there.
I went to one of the first. Well, if you can get us in, I'll go. Hey, that Van Burgers. Van Burgers. Did you say weed? What was the checklist?
Oh, yeah.
I was just checking.
Our Santa Cruz night.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to make some more coffee, brother. We're going to be at it tonight. All right. Cow Palace, man.
Cow Palace was, I have a lot of good memories of that place.
As long as I make the plane on Thursday. I got a flight on Thursday. I'm
good.
good.
Going back to Carolina?
Yeah.
Oh, sounds like a good song. Dan.
I know, right?
Yeah. That was a great place. A lot of fond memories of that place for sure. And, yeah, I'm sure it's probably going to meet the wrecking ball at some point. That'll be a sad moment when the time comes. But
tell me about this. You mentioned Y&T. Like that's another thing that I'm working towards a night with the show where I'm not the Roadhouse show. We really celebrate originals, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we
God bless
push.
you for that, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's something I'm very passionate about. But one night last year, I was back in North Carolina, and Chris and Sarah were running things, and they ended up doing a covers night and had a lot of fun doing it. And so this year, I've been thinking I'm probably going to do a Bay Area covers night, and I'm going to be involved. I think our band's going to do a few songs. I've been going through what I think we might do. Paul Kent's coming up from the House Rockers. He's going to play with our band. Actually.
They're a fun band too.
Yeah. Paul's going to do some songs that night. But anyway, so talk to me about like bands that you got to see that were Bay Area bands. Obviously, you had the Y&T, but they kind of already were a thing by the time you got to see them. I'm thinking. So, like, were there any bands you could think of that you got to kind of see the growth of? I mean, Huey Lewis and the News came out in the 80s, and I know I've got like Eric Drew, who was on here a couple of episodes ago. Eric can talk about seeing Los Gatos play and things like that. Are there any Bay Area bands that you kind of got to watch that from smaller venue type, thing, and then as they got that album that launched them?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would argue that Y&T never made it as well as they should have. It was just a great band. That, I think Bay Area people love them, but they never quite, they were never that super group thing, and Scorpions was going off the charts and Rat was, and I'm not dogging on those bands, but a lot of bands that were half the band in terms of, especially live shows, man. I've never been to a Y&T show where they didn't just bring it. Like every version of that lineup, they're fantastic live. You've never caught a Y&T show, catch them. But, other bands that I got to see, I got to see Eric Martin, back before he was with Mr. Big.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And again, that's another band, a lot of fun. And boy, Billy Sheehan, what a bass player, just unbelievable, right? There was a lot of talent in that band and some really great songs. They just never quite got to the place where they, became like a.
Well, they did have one big hit.
It was what was it? Green Tinted 60s Mind was one of them, and they had there were a bunch of songs that I really dug, but
that's not the one I'm thinking of. We'll find it.
I'm having a mental block right now.
My internet access is one of the cameras right now.
So you shouldn't go grab that?
We're getting Starlink, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One of our supporters has hooked us up with Starlink. We're excited about that.
So
we're going to have broadband out. We will be doing some live stream.
You can live stream now.
1080p live stream out of here, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic.
I'm excited about that.
I'm excited, by the way, playing here again. Thanks for the invite. We're going to be here in July.
Yeah.
With Neverland Band. By the way, did you know that we're connected to Neverland Band, or was that an accident?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, Brooke reached out early on last year, actually, and I kind of knew Brooke and Amelia a little bit. I think I want to say we had done something, maybe Morgan Hill Festival or something. I don't know. I'd run into him before, GVA. I'm not sure. But anyway.
Super talented band, and they're coming out with a bunch of originals.
They are, and that's part of what they're going to do here is their album release when they're coming.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've only heard one of the songs, but it's really, really great. And really talented. Well, you've heard Brooke sing. She's just amazing. And I'm doing worship service with her on Sunday at Jubilee Bridge, her church. So I sit in with her band from time to time.
Very cool. But yeah, no, after I booked her, I was going to find a spot for you anyway. And then I just kind of thought, well, their buddies, like, what a great show that'll be. Yeah, like, they'll have a good time.
It'll be a blast.
Supporting each other. So
I got to do a Christmas concert with Brooke and Emil this last, during COVID, we did it outdoors. Everybody froze to death, but it was fun. it was
do what you got. Hey,
look, we got a chance to play.
What I love, so a buddy of mine, I'm hoping he'll come and do a podcast actually. And so, like, when you talk about your job and like no one wants to talk about logistics, he does waste, right? And when we worked together, and I actually ended up taking over his position. He was general manager of a company, and I'd like talk about another like falling into something. Like I started out doing marketing for a company that I ended up running their service department. That I ended up the general manager of. It was a weird 5 years of my life or whatever it was. But anyway, Brian he left to go, and he had a degree in waste, and he went, and he was so proud. He's like, I'm getting back into waste. He was like, so like I was just kind of like, man, you gonna go work at the
garbage? Here I come.
And then the more that I really again try to be more cognizant about resource in the world around us and the direction that we're going in, waste is outrageously important. It's outrageously important in what we're going to do to what can be used from it, what we can do to prevent it, these types of things. So I'm really hoping he's coming on. But anyway, the point being is he said once about musicians, you're talking about, freezing. And he said, in the Valley, you can go, meaning Silicon Valley, you can go to some kind of an event, and it's a dinner event or something, and everyone who comes pays $1,000 to have a plate and a ticket and whatever, right, to come and do this thing. And they'll auction off paintings, and they'll get another, and they'll raise $100,000 for whatever reason that night. I mean, just pick a reason. Doesn't even have to be a very good one.
Right. And
the band that plays will probably make $100 a musician, right? Out of $100,000 that gets raised, out of all this money that's available, they'll probably make like $100 a musician. I mean, some bands, some corporate bands certainly make good money, but Brian's point was they probably live in their car, but have their dream guitar and their dream amp, and it doesn't matter. They'll spend their last $20 to go make that $100 just so they can go play a show. As a matter of fact, they'll play it for free.
And you know what? When the manager of that band, who's probably one of the members of the band, says, "Hey, how about $500?" The first ththing out of the other person's mouth in this conversation is, no. How about 400? Right? Could you do 4? Right? I mean, right? It is crazy. It really is.
It is crazy, and it's like a lot of things right now that the leap, the gap is just getting bigger and bigger. And so, one of the reasons why I am such a staunch supporter of original music is because making that leap, you have to almost sell out some level, right? It's like, can you make money in the Bay Area as a great band? Yes, if you're a great cover band.
That's right.
And you can go and do corporate events.
And even better is tribute bands. Tribute bands can get booked left and right.
Absolutely. We're going to play a night of $5,000, $10,000 in an event to go and do that kind of a thing. But God forbid you
wrote your own song,
to say that you're going to, no, I'm sorry, I don't do any cover songs. And, then it's like, well, we'll give you $200 if you get 10 people through the door. These
it's just ridiculous.
These things that, okay, I get the business model. The business model is I need to sell alcohol, right? I need to sell alcohol. So if sports sells alcohol, if reality TV sells alcohol, if DJs sells alcohol, if cover bands sell alcohol, then that's my business model, right? I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. But it is sad that as a society, as a community, right? As a society that's now our expectation. They're feeding their consumers what their consumers are asking for.
Yeah, it's true, but I also think, and I'm just going to defend the musician's perspective on this a little bit. I've this. I've been the booking guy at a venue, right, for the Granada back in. And so to give the short story, just so everybody understands the context, there's a historic theater here in Morgan Hill that was going to be knocked down. They were going to turn it into condos, and a group of us in the community said, "Yeah, over my dead body, we're not doing that, right?" So we fought it tooth and nail. We ended up getting the opportunity to run it as a nonprofit, and really as a proof of concept. We had to show that we could turn it into a live events theater and actually, have people come through the door. And it was pretty challenging when the air conditioning and the heater didn't work and the roof leaked and all that kind of stuff. Sure. But we did it. We made it happen. And there were a couple of us who did this, and I was one of the people that booked bands there. And so I do understand, like, you want, as a venue, you need somebody who's going to draw a crowd.
You got to keep the lights on, man.
But on the flip side, like, imagine a business plan where you were responsible for your own marketing and your own brand, and your brand was every band that hits this stage is really high quality, and you may have never heard them, but when they come, you're going to hear something magical that night that's really going to appeal to you. And the next time you come, maybe there'll be another band that's really amazing, and maybe it could become this place where you go to somewhere and say, I don't care who's on the docket. They're curating the music for me, and I know that when I go there, I'm going to hear something really exceptional, right? Like, I don't have any problem with having to have a following as a band. That's fine. I mean, that's important, but there has to be a place for bands to come and play who are unknown. Maybe like the Roadhouse. I know I'm preaching to the choir right now. But,
maybe I should think of that.
Yeah, it's a really great idea. You should totally do this.
To me, it is. I think about some of the bands that played last year on the stage, and I put them at some of the bars in the area, like in my mind, that I've played in, and we've done well. We're fortunate. We've had a good reaction most everywhere we've played. I'm not complaining, but I also see how unfair it is. But in any case, I put them into those bars, and I think no one would give this band that attention. And it's nothing about their music. It is nothing about the quality of their talent. Nothing at all. It is that the atmosphere does not play well into the idea of being accepting to what is being displayed by the artist over here, right? It's in the big screen TV.
Right.
And often, I'm not saying that this is not going to be a revenue generating business. We're working towards doing that. We are. But one of the reasons why I don't take any kind of money in, like, people have even offered to pay to come and like do videos here and stuff like that. One of the reasons why I don't do that is as soon as the focus comes that what bands come to play here is my source of revenue, then that all of a sudden changes my business model, right? That's nature. Like, I don't blame the bars, but that is like, that's one way of trying to, I think, solve the issue is people who have the ability to support these artists and just being willing to do that.
Well, that's one of the things, like, and I don't know if you've ever had a chance to attend a house concert, but that's kind of a movement happening amongst
I've played them, but I don't think I've ever gone to one.
Yeah, well, it's pretty awesome from the audience and perspective. And there's a buddy of mine that does them up in San Jose, and I try to go whenever I can. And my songwriting mentor, Craig Carruthers, is out of Nashville, Tennessee. Just a great guy and a wonderful songwriter. If anybody listening, just check out some of his stuff. Incredible writer. That's basically, one of his main, staples of his revenue is like playing in people's homes or really small venues, something similar to here at the Roadhouse in the backyard, right? And it's $20 a person, and all of that money goes to the artist. And
there you go.
100%. So there's no venue, right? It's someone's home who really loves music.
Right. Like we stress, we're not a venue.
And it's amazing what happens when you make it all about the music.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Yes.
People show up and they do this thing called listen.
Yes.
It's awesome. You can hear a pin drop at a house concert. Yes. Everybody, Craig will not play with an amp. That's one of his rules. Now, as a vocalist, I don't understand. I want to be in a microphone.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie. I like to use a little bit of reverb. It's like a thing, I think it makes it sound a little better, right? But he likes to play with his guitar unplugged, no microphone in front of him, and that requires silence.
Dead silence.
And it's incredible. Everybody's hanging on every word of every song.
Yeah.
And that meaning that he agonized over this line versus that line actually comes through. and connects, and it's a story being told. And being at a bar is the wrong place to appreciate music. You're there to be with your friends. You're there to get drunk. You're there to pick up a pretty girl, a pretty guy, whatever you happen to be into, right? And that's what's going on there. Yep. You came there for that,
that's right?
Right?
Sure.
And you're getting ambiance music, and that's fine. If you're playing in that environment, that's what that's about. But I think there is a place, having attended house concerts, that's why I got so excited when I first heard what you're doing here. Attending house concerts and really saying, look, if you appreciate music, we've all heard American Girl before. It's a wonderful song.
Yes, it is.
I'd like to hear it again too.
Yes.
But I also can spin that up on Spotify anytime I want. What's really amazing is experiencing something fresh and new from a singer-songwriter or a band who writes their own material, has something to say, and connecting with it as a first-time organic experience. It's very moving, and I'm gonna look. I'm gonna say something really. I have sat at a house concert and heard a song that I've never heard before that brought me literally to tears. Yeah. I'm just listening to this writer talk about something I really identified with me, and it hit me so hard in a way that no pop song ever would, never has. Right? Something about that live organic experience, and this man who wrote this song has clearly experienced something similar that I have, and he wrote it in such a beautiful way. It was like, man, I wish I'd written that. Right? It's like that moment.
I've definitely had those moments,
and I didn't even. And I'm
good.
And I'm telling you, I wasn't the only person in that room with tears in my eyes. Right? That's something you can get when the event is about the music.
That's right,
and that's different. Right?
It is,
and that's why I really applaud what you're doing here. I also think like this concept of, I'm not saying change your business model, but just because there's money changing hands at a house concert doesn't ruin that it's about the music, because all the money goes to the band, right? And the band gets a payday. It's not about a venue. There isn't anybody there hawking booze.
Right.
The host gets paid nothing, and they get to clean up the mess after. They're doing it because they love it. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing. If you've never been to a house concert, find one. There's some really beautiful music going on out there, and it's a special experience.
And I think the moral to maybe the story here is, you're right. Like, bars really aren't the best place for quite a bit of this music, and that's there's no issue with that whatsoever. It is what it is. So anyone who can support local music by doing like a house concert, or being able to donate to something, I'm not saying you need to donate to the Roadhouse, but something like this that you can help to support, that is behind bringing local art to the forefront of people's attention as best we can. Then please do. Because one of the phrases I came up with one time is, if your favorite band had been a cover band, then your favorite song never would have been written. Right. That's really brilliant. I love the way you said that. Yeah. Thank
really
you.
True.
It's so true. It's like, if they had just been like, you know what, I really feel like we had a thing going with what we were writing, but F it, man. It's like, we got to pay some bills. Like, I can't afford the gas money anymore. I guess we're just going to go be a cover band. And you stop, and they could just have that jewel just sitting right there, that thing that makes you sit in your buddy's, sofa and cry, in this amazing moment.
Leonard Skinner could have been a great Allman Brothers cover band, and they would have been the best cover band ever. But you know what? It would have been a real loss.
That's right.
Yeah. And you use the right word. It's art, right? The music is art, and I know that's a trite thing to say, but I think when you're sitting at a bar having a conversation with your friends, and again, you came there for that. I'm not faulting you for that. It's not the same as. Imagine going to the Louvre and standing in front of the Mona Lisa and just like chatting about, American Idol. That's what you do.
Chili cheese fries.
Right, yeah. Oh, you're gonna get yours animal style, like right? That's what's going on, And there are, and I'm not saying that every band is the Mona Lisa. I'm not saying every song is the Mona Lisa, but there is art happening, and so I think as artists we have to find a place that is for artists and about the art. And if you're a fan of music, you have to seek that out, because going to see a cover band is fun. I like going to see a cover band too, but it's a different experience than really going out to try to appreciate some great music. And that's something that grabs your soul. It's different than just sitting there and having a beer with your friends. That's also fun. I'm not against beer. By the way, if you want to have a beer, I'll have a beer with you.
We got to go get some burgers.
Burgers in the van, drive through. Yeah, I'm all for it. So I'm not bad mouthing anybody who goes out. I do it too. It's great.
Absolutely.
It's great. But do yourself a favor. If you really love music, go out and try and find something that you've never heard before. See if you can connect with it, because it's special. Special.
Thank you for saying that. And I think it's a good time to wrap this evening up as well. But I want to reiterate what you just said. It's like, if you enjoy music at any level, like, please give original artists some of your attention.
Yep.
Give it some of an attempt, and please, because it's what will help make that next song that you'll love happen.
And yes, exactly. And if you go to that show and you hear them play and you enjoy their stuff, if they got CDs for sale, buy them.
It doesn't take much, does it?
$5
it's
for
just
a CD.
A little something. It's like we spend so much money on coffee.
Yeah.
That we can't just,
Right.
again, like, buy a T-shirt or buy a CD.
It amazes me that way people put $1 in the tip jar. Like, you wasted time putting $1 in the tip jar. I appreciate it, but like, that you walked all the way across the floor for $1. Like, if I really enjoy something, I mean, if I'm sitting there, and I'm just saying personally, and it doesn't, not because I'm a musician, I've done this before. I mean, for a guy playing a saxophone or something, if I'm sitting there and I'm really enjoying it, I'm listening to it, I'm going to reach in my wallet and I'm going to put a $5 or a $10 bill in there, because if I just got a half an hour enjoyment out of this, like, what, I mean, we, like you said, we waste money on lattes, for gosh sakes.
Yeah.
And so for those who are consumers of music and not on this end of the deal, like Spotify and iTunes, and it's a third of a cent to play, folks. Like, $5 to buy a CD for somebody, or just or tip them because you enjoy the music. I don't care if you have a CD player in your car, then just give them the $5. That's like thousands of plays. Like, you're really supporting the music when you do that in a way that you can't do just by adding somebody on Spotify and listening 3 or 4 times a year.
That's a good way, and that's true. And that should also be reiterated. It's like, for a musician on Spotify or iTunes to make $5 is thousands of spins. Thousands of spins.
Yep.
For $5, for $5 stinking bucks.
And by the way, this is like when people complain about how, I know you said we're wrapping up, but I'm just going to keep talking until you turn off my microphone. You've got the plug over there. You can just unplug me. But and that's it. The reason concerts are so expensive now is that streaming has ruined the music industry. So back in the day, now look, there's 2 different models. I definitely favor the old model. It's not just because I'm an old man, more salt and pepper. We've covered that. But back in the day, when you put out an album, when the Eagles released Hotel California, right? And that album was available for $8. You could buy the whole album, take it home with you, and you had the great sleeve, and you could read all the lyrics.
The liner notes, was just man, right? Just, what are you going to do tonight?
There's something tactile that's been lost, and like, you remember the magic of opening it up and just like looking at the imagery and reading every. I used to love to read the lyrics before I listened to the songs the first time, and I try to imagine how it was going to sound, and then it'd be like, ooh, it's a lot different than I thought, right? Yeah. So anyway, all of that aside, I liked my detours. It was $8, right? And the band got roughly half.
Yeah.
Right? The logistics guys and the marketing guys got the other half, and the band. So the Eagles made $4 when they sold that album, right? It was a one-time sale, but boom, that was $4 in their pocket, right? Yeah. And that paid a lot of bills. If you inflation adjust that would be like a band getting like $8 or $9 now, right? And so we trained people we trained people with it all started with Napster, but we trained people that music should be free. Or so free that it's basically free, right? I mean, and so we ruined the monetization for the Eagles to have made that $4, inflation adjusted $8 or $9 now. Like you said, tens of thousands of plays, just to make that one sale, right? And so when the revenue dropped out of the bottom of music sales, back in the day when the Eagles, they made the money on the record, and then the tour was promotion, and the tour broke even.
Right.
So I got to buy a ticket to see the Eagles for like $20, right? And go to the Cow Palace and see the Eagles play.
But
right?
Man, you bought that T-shirt and they made some money there.
But at the end of the day, I got to experience that firsthand. And you know what that did to me as a fan? It wrote me in. We just talked about shows, Aerosmith and Van Halen, right? And Y&T. And I'm a lifelong fan because I went to those shows and I experienced it. And it was in person. And I could afford it. I bought those tickets with my own money, with my paper route money, because mom and dad didn't need to subsidize that. I just
$150 ticket, man.
$300, $400. Yeah. Well, now because we've destroyed the revenue stream from music, now the concerts make money, and the music release is to promote the concert. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
And so now these concerts make oogles of money. Is that a word? I don't know. I just made it up. They make a lot of money.
I'm good with it.
And it sounded right. We're definitely wrong, but it sounded
Oodles?
right. Yeah, oodles is
Oodles?
good. I think I said oogles, but
I think so too.
Yeah.
I like both of them.
Anyway, you get the gist.
Yeah.
Now the concerts make a ton of money, but then think about this from the perspective of an up and coming musician, right? And I know that's very easy for you to do.
It's just a touch.
This doesn't take a lot
of kind of taking things to the extreme as far as this goes as well.
Doesn't take a lot of imagination.
I think my philosophy. I've been thinking about this recently. It's kind of like, if you don't like the game, make your own game.
Yeah,
and I think that's what I'm doing right now. Is kind of making my own game.
I like that a lot. Yeah. We wouldn't be sitting here if you weren't making up your own game. That's pretty awesome. Because we could have had this conversation without microphones, and we would have. It probably would have been just like this, but there would have been more alcohol involved, I'm sure.
The night's not over yet.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
All right, dude. Let's pull the plug on it for tonight.
It
was excellent. Thank you so much for coming and having this conversation. I feel like we're probably going to do this again. It was too easy.
That was a lot of fun, man. I probably got a lot. Well, I definitely have a lot more stories.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed doing this. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, we need to do more about this. And again, with the gist of bringing you down here to begin with was the idea from there to here. And so we'll keep on having these conversations and telling these stories and kind of eking out what the last several years of the Valley has been, and also what people can find as far as the Poppy Jasper Band goes.
Thank you.
And maybe through our joint effort in supporting original and local music, we'll make some people take notice.
And last plug, we're about to release our first LP. So we got
it's going to be released on all things.
It'll be released on all things that pay me 1/3 of a cent per play. Yes, but please check it out because every 1/3 of a cent helps. We'll be. We're just finishing the mix and master right now. It'll be out sometime in April. I don't have an exact date, but we've got 9 songs out there now, and then there'll be 3 more that we're going to kind of collect into a 12-song LP, and we'll make CDs out of it. So if you come see us, buy one, please.
Excellent. Don't forget to support your local artists.
Amen, brother.
All right, everybody. Peace.
Thank you.